Living on the same street, you can become best friends or worst enemies. I've always considered myself Tim's friend. He and his wife became my neighbors 4 years ago, and over time we realized that we have a lot in common. Both have been married for about 5 years, they have no children, and both are workaholics. Tim was a veteran. His career as a pilot ended 7 years ago. His military plane lost control, and Tim steered it away from residential areas to avoid casualties. Later, the ejection resulted in injuries upon landing. The doctors banned Tim from flying and sent him into retirement. Despite a substantial pension, he did not stay at home. Having retrained as an accountant, he went to work. During his studies, Tim met Dorothy. They studied together. They had an affair and soon got married. And then they got a job at the same company. Life is unpredictable, and I found myself forced to break the unpleasant news to my friend. It all started with Tim's detailed story. The director of the company where he and his wife worked together began to show unequivocal signs of attention to Tim's wife. At first, these were private visits to his office for a cup of coffee and a treat with tangerines. I could not even imagine that an affair had begun between them, because Michael seemed to be a serious person, a good boss, and an exemplary family man. At first, everything seemed innocent. If they stayed late, the director would definitely take Dorothy home. But only the machine knew the truth, which they skillfully hid: hugs and kisses, compliments and privacy. Over time, meetings in the car became boring and uninteresting. They wanted more. Everyone had their own nuances. Michael was married, he had 2 children, and Dorothy had a husband. The hotel was an unsuitable option because our city was small and Michael was a famous person. But after Tim was transferred to another position, secret meetings became possible at Dorothy's house in his absence. Tim explained in detail how it all started. One day, company director Michael called him into his office and said, "Tim, I like the way you work. You're a veteran, and people respect you. There is no better candidate for this position in our company. I want to promote you to the position of general manager. We have 20 branches all over the country, and you will be in charge of their work. You will need to go on business trips once a week and conduct audits. I know that no one can do this job better than you." Now he started every week in a new city, recording the results. Dorothy had to stay alone for 2 days and 2 nights once a week. One day, when Tim returned home, he checked the surveillance cameras and saw that Michael had come to visit Dorothy in his absence. Dorothy explained that Michael's boss allowed her to work from home and sometimes brought documents. Tim had no choice but to believe her, because he loved his wife immensely and trusted her. But doubts crept into his soul. In the army, he was taught to trust, but to check. After telling me this story, he asked me for a favor. When Michael arrives at his house in his absence, I need to stop by his house. Tim said, "You pretend you need the tools," and Tim is on the video link telling me where they are. Tim gave me the keys to the house, so I could unlock the door. When his boss Michael arrived, I waited for half an hour and called Tim via video link. Tim said, "We're starting the operation." I went to his house, and Tim watched everything happening on his phone screen. Using the keys Tim had left for me, I went inside unhindered. There was no one in the living room and kitchen, but we knew for sure that his boss Michael was in the house. Tim said resolutely, like a soldier, "Go to the bedroom." I couldn't argue with him and went, even though I was very scared. Going up to the second floor, I found myself in front of the bedroom door. Tim confidently said, "Open the door," and I did so. In the bedroom, I saw with my own eyes, and Tim saw on his phone screen what his wife was doing with his boss Michael. Dorothy and Michael were shocked when they saw me. Dorothy immediately wrapped herself in a blanket and screamed, "What are you doing here?" Before I could say anything, Tim started shouting on the phone, "Pack your things and leave." Soon Tim divorced his wife, and the video from the phone became evidence. Tim's fate was very sad. He couldn't bear the betrayal. He lived alone, quit his job, and started drinking heavily. He died 3 years later. Dorothy moved to another city, remarried, and had a baby. She didn't come to Tim's funeral. Boss Michael apologized to his wife after she found out about his cheating. They live happily, and as far as I know, his company is thriving.